Saidpur village is one of the oldest villages that is part of Islamabad. And I remember when I was in grade six, we went there for one of the educational trips, and there was a mosque and a temple, and also a gurdwara sort of, where Sikh can practice their religion. So I was told, rather, we were informed. There was also a museum where there were pictures of how Saidpur looked like in the early days. And we were informed that people from all religion lived here in harmony. And right along the mosque, in the middle of the village, there was a river that used to flow, and people used to, use its this resource for their washing purposes and drinking water. It was a very clean river that used to flow from directly from the Margilla Hills. But eventually, because it became overcrowded gradually when Islamabad became the capital city, and because of the encroachments and a lot of construction, the river eventually dried up. So now the river is not there, but because it is in Islamabad, which is also one of the posh cities in Pakistan, many new construction and development took place. And gradually now in Saidpur, there are many high level restaurants and many good places where tourism is attracted, where people from all walks of life visit the place. So it's not just the village is not no longer for the villages only, it's also for the other people who love to see the beauty of old Islamabad. So this is how Saidpur village is, and it is being termed as, rather it used to be termed as, a model village in Islamabad, and it's on its model other villages can thrive. But what happened just yesterday in Saidpur was quite alarming for those who don't know. But for people like who have been living there, they know that the river, it just reclaimed its old route. And now, because there are encroachments along the village, along the river, and there are also Margilla Hills, because it's in the foothills. So the hills, the rainfall along the hills, it resulted in flash floods. The torrent that just was falling from the hills filled up the river, and then there was also the pressure from the subsurface water that was there that filled up the river. And because now a lot of waste is being dumped inside that area, the plastic waste, non-segregated waste, so it became choked up. And so, because, and the last but not the least that exacerbated the situation was the cloudburst. So cloudburst triggered everything, and what we saw yesterday was not just a flash flood, it was a disaster. And it was not just the last time we saw it or the first time we saw it, it is going to occur again, conditional to the climate change that is happening. So exactly what happened a few months ago, starting right after spring, this time in the northern areas of Pakistan, especially Gilgit-Baltistan and even along Babusar, the temperature has peaked, or these regions have experienced quite a high temperature that is totally unusual for people living there, because the temperature is usually low. So because of the high temperature, what happens usually is that the surface or the ground, it gets parched, so which means that its capacity to absorb surface water gets reduced because of consecutive heat waves and because of the dry spells that the region experienced recently. In addition to that, because there is a lot of illegal logging or the deforestation that's happening along the hills, and it's totally unchecked. Is no forest governance along the region. So a lot of illegal deforestation has resulted again in the mountains that are steeps and without any barriers to curtail the glacial lake outburst floods. Again, that is happening there. That's a recurrent phenomena. So all these factors combined with the cloudburst, and because that region, you are absolutely spot on, they have never experienced this kind of flood. Now there was a glough, and then there was this debris because of no forest, and then there was combined with the cloudburst, so it just swept away everything with it. And then another important aspect is that the early warning systems did not work, that were installed already. So they did not work, they failed. And that's what we are seeing now is tourists, more than 3 to 400 cars are, they are stuck there, and rescue operations are being carried out to make the people safe and to move them towards safe places. So
So when
basically, the early warning systems did not work because most of the early warning systems were installed by as part of different projects being carried out by the development partners and development organizations who do not take on board the communities who are living there. Somebody who's living at Babusar, he or she knows what is this, how is the situation on the ground, and if a torrent is expected to fall down from the mountain, what will be the route and where exactly the early warning system needs to be installed, how tourists will be affected. So they did not take on board the people, the indigenous communities that are living there. And because there were mostly consultants who were outside from the community and consultants who were international who did not know the ground realities, that's why the early warning systems failed. This is one of the harsh realities that we face, not just in the north, but even other parts of the country. So basically, if I tell you about the policies, well, we are really good on in context of paperwork. The policies are there, and I think not just the national policy, we also have provincial policies, especially after the decision by the Supreme Court in context of establishing climate change authority, and also the responses from the provinces that they need to develop the policies, climate change policies. So they are all there. The challenge is because it's a provincial subject, and also that departments like to work in silos, there's lack of coordination. First challenge. Second challenge is we do not have local governance systems in place who can make sure that these policies trickle down towards the communities and the impacts are lessened or mitigated. Third important aspect is we have not rather integrated the indigenous knowledge that is very much there, that is being practiced by communities living since for decades in these areas, who understand that when ants are climbing up the tree, it means that we are going to experience floods. And when even clouds are there and ants are climbing down the trees, it means it might rain but there will be no floods. So this kind of indigenous knowledge exists in your north that we have not been able to document. We have not been able to document or make part the communities as part of the planning process of climate change. Last but not the least, the construction and real estate sector that has been missing throughout the planning process. That's why we see choked waterways, construction being done along the riverbed, and the riverbed is being encroached, the floodplains being encroached, and then you find a hotel built across Atabad Lake that was formed as part of a disaster. So everybody is looking to find his or her business even in the disaster, and nobody is checking them and nobody is asking them anything. So this is the kind of challenge that we are facing in our country. So none of the reasons, actually, because I live in the vicinity. So what happened in DHA phase 5 is Rawalpindi. It lies in the Rawalpindi region and connected to Islamabad. So there was again rainfall, and there was a downpour, basically not exactly cloudburst, but rain. A lot of rain was happening since morning. So what happened, because the entire society is constructed by encroaching the floodplain of River Sama. So because it's a monsoon season, and also Rawal Dam spillways were open, and they are opening it for the last 2 3 days, of course, because the dam's capacity is filled because of the cloudburst that happened in the first spell. So they opened it. Now that water from that spillways, it was eventually filling up River Sama already. So now when the early morning when we experienced rainfall, so Sama was already filled up, and the drains that were clogged as part of encroachment along the riverbed and floodplains, the society was experiencing a sort of flash flood. So the incident that happened was when the driver entered left the street and entered the main road. There was this drain and the pressure was so much of the flash flood that he couldn't start the car, and unfortunately the car fell into the river Soma, and rescue operations are underway, but we are still hopeful maybe we are able to find them, but it's a difficult situation.